So he walked up here and he began to take a leak. And in those trees there, through his thermal imager, he saw a figure standing.
If I can find anything, some down trees or bark, but oh, no way. Check this out. You serious? Look at it. All right, I just want you to see how big this is. My hand doesn't even go halfway across the forefoot. Look how big it is compared to I wear a size 13 shoes.
The wild is a refuge by day, but after darkness falls, it becomes something else entirely. Towering, shadowy creatures, glowing eyes, deliberate movements, and eerie sounds turning calm nights into terror. Step into the darkness with us. On the remote ridges and winding waterways of the West, the Western Bigfoot expedition searches where wildlife roams and footprints appear. Each trek is guided by whispers of history, signs of movement, and the rhythms of the forest. Some areas hint at Sasquatch, others guard their secrets, but every step draws the team closer to the unknown. While driving along a secluded forest road, the team's eyes caught a subtle disturbance among the undergrowth, broken branches and scattered debris that seemed almost deliberate.
So we're just driving down this road here and happened to look out the window and I just kind of noticed this. Now there's some deadfall here. We're going to look at this break right here, and now it's funny. Well, there's human activity because there's a can of Coors Banquet. Wow. But this looks old.
Yeah, this got broken over a long time ago.
Little things like this, last time we focused on some tree breaks like that, we pulled Sasquatch hair out of it.
At first glance, it could have been human, but closer inspection hinted at something far older, something the wilderness itself seemed to guard. In past expeditions, similar signs had revealed strands of strange, unexplainable hair, appearing wherever footprints, sightings, or manipulated branches suggested the presence of an unknown creature. Across North America, these silent traces continue to challenge what is known, drawing the explorers deeper into the forest's hidden mysteries. Jonathan Brown, a seasoned tracker and longtime explorer of the Pacific Northwest, shares his thoughts on Sasquatch in western Washington. He believes they don't need to move as much as their eastern counterparts, where harsh winters and shifting game force constant travel.
It's older, but it's in a straight line. It's got a good breadth. Prints are big.
A couple of them look a bit interesting, but they also look a little old. Just like the Go Road all over again.
Just about.
Look at that.
See, so this one. What's interesting about this is that the needles are pressed into the dirt.
Correct.
You can almost maybe see a toe-ish action here, but you got this.
Look, it looks almost like a step, and maybe you have this. See how this is pushed up like a ridge?
Out here on the west side, it's more temperate, more food around. Almost like the coastal tribes long ago. They didn't need to wander far. In the eastern mountains, the harsher winters and wandering herds likely push Sasquatch to cover vast distances, constantly on the move. On the milder western side, travel isn't as urgent, though during the warmer months they may shift between higher and lower terrain, following the land's subtle patterns while staying largely within familiar territory. He turned the camera, and something in the edge of the trees caught his eye. Through the thermal scope, a shadowy form moved low, almost gliding along the forest floor, blending with leaves and broken branches. Then it shifted in a way that made no sense.
Thermal technology was pretty primitive, but I'll walk you through the sighting. Flip the camera around. So he walked up here and he began to take a leak. Camp is behind me. Now he turned and he looked over here, and in those trees there, through his thermal imager, he saw a figure standing. And from what he describes, it went down kind of on its stomach. It started doing like a swimming motion on the ground, almost like if it's trying to bury itself in the debris around it. Then it almost did like this strange yoga pose looking thing. One thing that he noticed:
arching, twisting, almost like a creature stretching into an unnatural pose. A massive hand rose, fingers splayed, reaching skyward in a gesture both eerie and inexplicable, leaving him frozen in disbelief at what the night had revealed.
Was that it put its hand up. He can see all 5 fingers, his big hand, almost like it was reaching up for like a high five off the ground, and he couldn't figure out what that was, and it took him a long time, and he figured out finally that it was blocking the ambient light from a campfire that was behind him. So this Sasquatch was on the ground with its hand up, blocking the ambient light so he can get a better look at him. And he was trying to call people back in camp.
Missy Martinson, a longtime Bigfoot researcher and seasoned wilderness explorer, recalls a quiet evening at camp with Rachel, her daughter, Lydia, riding her bike while music played softly. Suddenly, Tristan asked if they'd heard a knock. Behind the tent, a rustling moved through the brush, alive yet unseen, turning the calm night tense and charged.
In camp catching up, Lydia, Nick's daughter, was riding her bike around camp, and we were listening to Disney music. So, like, kind of typical kid playing, just quiet night at camp. We weren't planning anything. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Tristan came over and said, "Did you guys just hear that wood knock?" And we said, "No, we've been talking and, the music's playing." At about 8:15, behind John Ray's tent on the north end, we could hear noise. It wasn't movement, just noise, like something rummaging around or something. But it was loud. About 8:30, same thing happened again.
As daylight faded into twilight, a figure emerged from beside their tent. It took a couple of deliberate steps before slipping into the shadows of the woods toward the road.
Everything starts to look grainy in the woods, especially. Just your eyes are switching from day to night, and I see a figure come out from next to John Ray's tent, took 2 steps, went into the woods towards the road, and that was it. But the thing was, it was solid black against the twilight night. Its arms were super exaggerated. It was probably about 6 foot tall. It wasn't huge.
Against the dimming sky, it was pitch black, its elongated arms strikingly unnatural. Standing around 6 feet, it wasn't massive, but its presence was enough to freeze the onlookers, leaving them staring in disbelief.
And we all kind of were like, "Well, that's weird. You heard a knock over here, and now we're hearing something weird coming from around John Ray's tent." So I walked over. John was in his tent, and I said, "Have you heard anything from around your tent?" And he said, "No, I haven't heard anything. My ears are bad." And I was like, "Okay." So I went back to where we were all sitting, and we're just talking. It's twilight, and at that,
silently asking themselves what they had just seen. The footprints pressed into the soil with striking detail.
Of the same size, like look at that one right there, Look like a foot?
Yeah.
So this one looks like a foot as well. We're gonna cast up to like here, just get the full, what looks like the depth. What I like about it, there's a stick here in the toes. And the toes kind of, go around it. I feel like if it was ungulate, it would have just stepped down and really mashed that stick down a lot deeper. Now there's a lot of small top debris.
Heels angled, toes splayed, curving around a stick left in the ground.
Debris, and be really careful to not disturb the information that's under it. Mix I made, I totally messed up on the first one, so. I'm gonna make more. Okay. Real quick, hold on.
The direction of the trail.
All right, we're gonna try to extract this. I don't have a shovel, so I'm doing this in a non-conventional way.
Some impressions were faint, others clear, but together they trace the passage of something deliberate, leaving the forest quietly marked. On Small Town Monsters, every investigation begins with a quiet pull toward the unknown, and this time, that pull leads deep into the Kiamichi Mountains of southeast Oklahoma, where an explorer sets out for a week of searching, starting in Clayton with a visit to the Bigfoot Research Enigma Center, where founder Tanya Cordy has gathered years of chilling local encounters, each one hinting that whatever roams these mountains isn't just legend, but something that may still be out there.
So I finally made it here to southeast Oklahoma, beautiful Kiamichi Mountains. We're going to be spending a week out here investigating and exploring a whole variety of areas. I'm really excited, but first stop is going to be the Bigfoot Museum of Oklahoma, the Bigfoot Research Enigma Center, I believe is what it's called, here in Clayton, Oklahoma, right in town. You can't miss it. It's right off the main road. Tanya Kordek, who founded the museum, has been collecting stories here out of southeast Oklahoma. So we're going to go in and check out the Bigfoot Museum and sit down with Tanya and talk with her about the museum and some of the history here.
Tanya Kordek recounts an unexpected encounter after moving from Texas into the isolated forests of southeast Oklahoma, an experience that reshaped her perspective. Over time, it became a mission to create a space where witnesses could share without fear. That vision grew into the Bigfoot Research Enigma Center, steadily enriched by stories, photos, and unexplained artifacts, each deepening a mystery that continues to captivate.
My name is Tanya Kordek. I lived in Texas, moved up here to the woods, and had a Bigfoot experience. And after 5 years, I thought how nice it would be to have a place where other people that have had Bigfoot experiences could come and share and have a safe place without being made fun of. And this is what birthed this. Over the years, people brought us things, different artifacts or pictures, and we made a safe place for people to share. So that's what this is.
Many of the stories shared with Tanya Kordek follow an unsettling pattern, locals describing brief roadside sightings, eerie camping nights filled with distant, unnatural calls echoing through the darkness, and rare evidence kept private, only revealed at the Bigfoot Research Enigma Center. Yet, what lingers most is the instinct many can't explain, the sudden, undeniable sense that something unseen is nearby, and it's time to leave.
A lot of locals, we do get a lot of people come from other places, but a lot of the locals have some of the same stories. They're taking trash out, Bigfoots are watching them do it. Other stories, a lot of people, I see them crossing the streets. That's really common. Once in a while, people get a picture. A lot of people don't share the pictures. They share it with you, nobody else. A lot of people talk about camping and hearing howls. Sometimes primate sounds like, oops, you hear that a lot. People do talk about that. People talk about sometimes they have a feeling like they're supposed to leave the woods.
Another account the Bigfoot Museum founder recalls involved a couple visiting to describe their experience on a secluded property. They discovered a small ruined shack deep in the woods, with a huge rock smashed through its roof, an act impossible to explain by ordinary means, leaving them, and anyone who hears the story, questioning what unseen force could have done it, and why.
Makes you wonder. I mean, that's a really interesting, and that was just yesterday.
Yes, just
That's so
yesterday.
cool.
So that was really cool. There's another one I was just thinking about, down the road a little bit. The husband and wife come in and they're, sometimes on Saturdays there's a lot of people here and they're getting really close up in my face and they want to tell me about a property they're on and they just sold, and they explained to me who's selling the property. We're like, oh, I know, we're talking about the guy and we're talking about his Bigfoot stuff. And I said, you got Bigfoot stuff? And they said, yeah. And they go, tell me. And they go, well, we sold the property. I go, tell me, I want to hear it. And they told me that when they first bought the property 5 years ago.
The couple recalled that when they first moved in, the woods echoed with eerie, almost primate-like calls. At first, they were uneasy, unaware of any past encounters. But the real mystery remained. What force could have hurled a massive boulder through a tiny, crumbling shed, leaving a question that still defied explanation?
And she goes to tell me, when we first moved in, we heard all kinds of stuff. We heard hoops and things that sounded primate in the woods. And we were kind of nervous moving into that because we were not told that they had had any encounters. But thinking about it, who would have the strength to throw this huge boulder-like rock and destroy one of the small sheds?
During a month-long cedar clearing project on the property, a crew of roughly 20 men suddenly rushed to the owner's cabin, visibly unsettled and silent. Their foreman stepped forward, imitating the distinct echoing knocks that had startled them, and revealed they had glimpsed something massive moving through the woods. The encounter left the owner both astonished and uneasy, a stark reminder that the forest held forces far beyond ordinary explanation.
One here on this property where a crew of workers who were here to clear the cedars off of the land actually were here working for about a month. I think there was a crew of about 20 to 25 guys. And the owner of the property came one day to visit to see how it was going. And all of the guys were actually out of the woods. They were up by his cabin and they were visibly agitated and seemed scared, and he thought somebody had maybe hurt themselves or something, and got out and asked them what happened, what's going on, somebody hurt.
Amid the quiet of the woods, the team first spotted what seemed like wildlife resting, but a bulky form pressed close to a tree drew their attention. What initially appeared solid and lifeless gradually suggested the shape of a seated figure, its outline blending unnervingly with the shadows. The strange uncertainty held them frozen, caught between disbelief and curiosity, as the forest seemed to hint at something watching just beyond their vision. With shattered sheds, strange calls, and shadowy figures in the woods, what is really hiding in the Kiamichi Mountains, and is it still watching us? This is the story of an outdoor explorer named Rob Hoff, the creator behind the channel Rob Hoff Adventures. For years, he's hiked and filmed some of the most remote and mysterious trails in the US, often capturing moments that defy explanation. His videos reveal the thrill and the danger of venturing into the unknown. But on one recent hike, Rob came across something so strange in the trees that it made him question everything he thought he knew, and forced him to stop in his tracks. The adventure began on Pikes Peak, where a seemingly ordinary view hid a shape that shouldn't have been there.
This week I'm going to go through something really weird that happened to me on the trail recently. Check out this clip here. This is a clip from one of my early trips up to take pictures of Pikes Peak. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, right in the trees there's a really weird shape. So I zoomed in. Now look at this.
The image in the trees refused to leave his mind. Unsure what it was, he returned to the trail, determined to uncover the truth. Step by step, he moved through the quiet forest, scanning every shadow for clues. At the exact spot where the shape first appeared, nothing seemed out of place, yet the tension was undeniable. It was his first time facing something so mysterious, and the unease was impossible to ignore.
I know what you're thinking, and I'm not sure what this thing is, but I had to find out. So I went back to the spot. I started hiking up, and I had to figure out what I was looking at, see if I could find any more evidence. All right, I'm back up to the scene of the crime. And so far, no signs of anything weird or strange. I am a little bit nervous, though.
Among the fallen trees and scattered bark, something unexpected appeared, a set of massive footprints. They were enormous, stretching far beyond the reach of his hands, even compared to his own large shoes. The impressions were fresh, carved into the earth as if whatever left them had just passed. He moved carefully along the trail, a mix of curiosity and unease tightening with every step. Alone in this remote stretch of forest, the realization hit. This was bigger and far stranger than anything he had anticipated.
If I could find anything, some downed trees or bark, but oh, no way. Check these out. You serious? Yeah. Alright, I just want you to see how big this is. My hand doesn't even go halfway across the forefoot. Look how big it is compared to I wear a size 13 shoes. So I'm following in the direction of the footprints. They looked somewhat fresh, but I don't know what I'm gonna find up here. I really... What was that? I should have come up here with somebody else.
A sudden crack echoed through the forest, sharp against the quiet. The wind, or something moving just out of sight. Darkness pressed in, shadows shifting with every heartbeat. Nothing emerged, but the forest felt alive, watching. Unease tightened like a vice, and with every cautious step back down the trail, the question lingered. What had been there, and was it still?
Branch break. I don't know if it's the wind. Is there somebody over there? Hello? I spent some time searching the area, but by then it was pretty dark and I was ready to get out of there. I didn't know what was lurking in the woods. Alright, I'm not seeing anything, but there's something weird up here. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I think I'm gonna head down.
He returned with only a few fragments of evidence, each one raising more questions than answers. The encounter had left a lingering unease. Something in the woods was watching, unseen. He couldn't shake the feeling that others might have experienced the same. With the forest still holding its secrets, he left a warning. Tread carefully, stay curious, and respect what might be waiting just beyond sight.
So I came back with a few clues, and I'm not quite sure what this all means. This was weird. This is a really weird experience. Let me know in the comments. I don't want to say the B word or the S word. Let me know if you've had an experience like this. I don't know what to say. Until next time though, try to get outside a little bit. Watch out for Bigfoots.
In the end, the forest kept its secrets, the footprints and shadows whispering of something far larger, something unseen. Every sound, every movement hinted at a presence just beyond understanding. But one question lingers: when you step into the wild, how close are you really to the unknown? On Sanctuary as Beauty, the most unsettling moments often begin quietly, as they did for Garnet Stevenson on February 23, 2018, during what should have been a routine drive home through empty farmland. Beneath a grey, drizzling sky, she noticed a lone figure crossing the open field. At first, it looked human, but something about its movement, unnatural, almost imitative, felt deeply wrong, especially knowing the land's owner had died only days earlier. The realization left her with a chilling sense that whatever she was seeing did not belong there at all.
And I was coming home from grocery shopping, approximately 2:30 in the afternoon. I was coming down our road, and on the right side of the road is all farm fields, alfalfa fields. And it was thawed off, there was no snow, and it was kind of raining out. And I saw a man, which I thought was walking across, kitty corner across this alfalfa field. There was just something about him that didn't look right, and I started thinking about it. The farmer who owned the property had just a week before that.
As the moment intensified, she slowed her truck and stopped along the roadside, her eyes fixed on the figure now clearly visible in the open field. What stood there was no ordinary person, but a towering, pitch-dark silhouette, featureless from head to toe, with long arms hanging beneath broad, almost neckless shoulders. Even more unsettling was the way it moved, advancing with a bent, uneven stride that didn't quite resemble walking at all, instead seeming to glide across the ground with an eerie speed that felt completely out of place.
And then I stopped the truck on the side of the road, and I realized this person was all black, like head to toe. There wasn't a hat, a shirt, an umbrella, anything. It was at least 8 foot tall. I never saw his face, pretty long arm swing. From the back, from what I saw, it didn't look like he had much of a neck. It was like wide shoulders and just like, like a bump on his shoulders, kind of like he was just like this. And they were walking odd, with a bent knee almost, but gliding across this field. And they went across this field really quite fast because we had trail ridden across this field my whole life.
Partially obscured by the thick brush at the field's edge, only the upper portion of the figure remained visible, yet its massive, unnaturally broad shoulders were impossible to ignore against the dim, rain-soaked backdrop. Then, with a sudden, fluid shift, it turned and slipped down into a nearby ravine, vanishing almost instantly, leaving her standing in stunned silence as the weight of the moment settled in. What she had just witnessed wasn't ordinary. It was something she would never be able to explain.
And you could see probably from its rear end up, because there was like brush on the side of this field, and you could just see how wide its shoulders were, and then it just turned and it dropped down into this ravine. And I just remember standing there in the rain going, oh my God, I just saw a Bigfoot.
That morning, she stepped outside to scatter food for the birds, the grass lightly glazed with ice from the cold dawn. Her dogs wandered ahead, but one paused, investigating a patch near the driveway with unusual focus. As she drew closer, she noticed a deep, unusual mark pressed into the frozen ground, almost like a footprint left deliberately off the path. Curious, she carefully preserved it with expanding foam and later made a full cast, revealing a remarkably detailed track, evidence of something massive and mysterious that had passed through.
I came out from my downstairs door to feed my birds in the morning, and it was kind of frosty on the grass. It wasn't really snowy. And my dogs went out, and my dogs were sniffing around. My one dog kept sniffing this one area, and it was really close to my driveway. Finally, I walk over and I'm looking at, and it was an impression in the frozen grass. And the more I got to looking at it, the more it looked like a footprint. It looked like something had walked along the driveway and then just put 1 foot off onto the grass. I went and I decided to cast it with Great Stuff foam, and then I later went in and I got casting material. It really shows a really great print of a Bigfoot track.
Lawrence Huff, an experienced outdoorsman and lifelong hunter, was walking up his driveway with his 2 German shepherds when they suddenly bolted toward the tree line, barking and growling at something hidden in the shadows. He rushed after them, pushing through the trees and catching only brief glimpses through the brush. By the time he reached the spot, all he saw were a pair of legs disappearing into the woods, an unsettling sign of a presence, both swift and unnatural, leaving him frozen in fear and disbelief.
My first experience was I was walking up the driveway and we had 2 German shepherds, and all of a sudden they started chasing something. And it was in the woods, and I didn't really see what they were chasing at first. The only time I could see it was after I'd go past the tree, and I was able to catch up to it and see what it was. And at that time, all I could see was just 2 legs. And then they chased it and chased it. They didn't come back for a couple hours.
A subtle ripple ran through their forms, barely visible in the pale moonlight. A smaller figure followed, mirroring the same strange fluid movement. Half hidden in shadow, they seemed almost unreal, leaving an eerie sense of something watching from the darkness.
It looked like they just shivered, and all down their body, it was like everybody says it was a predator, but it wasn't that shiny, but you could still see it from the moonlight. And then there was another one there, and I don't know if he was a younger one or the next year's juvenile. It took him a little bit to do it, and then you could still see him, just like he shivered, and it just all went. I could still see them. I couldn't actually see them like I could see you. They were all like cloaked, but I could only see them in the moonlight.
Encounters with Bigfoot have been whispered about for decades, with countless tales circulating in every corner of the country. Skeptics shrug it off, while others insist it roams the forests quietly, observing but never interfering. The unspoken rule seems simple: respect its world, and it respects yours, a paradox that has puzzled those who claim to have glimpsed it. On the latest adventure from Sozo Bear Films, the team set out to uncover something real in the heart of Appalachia. Northeast Georgia, a region steeped in Bigfoot lore, would be their testing ground. As dawn broke on a crisp October morning, the crew prepared to visit Expedition Bigfoot, the site with perhaps the strongest evidence of these elusive creatures, hoping the woods might finally reveal what has long remained hidden.
Northeast Georgia and that region of Appalachia is very tied to Bigfoot. Are there creatures out in the woods that we don't really fully understand? Maybe. We'll find out.
It's 5:30 in the morning. It's October. It's officially spooky season. We're heading to LJ, to the place that has probably the most actual evidence of Bigfoot's existence. It's called Expedition Bigfoot. We're getting ready to head out there now.
As soon as the idea for the investigation took shape, the team knew exactly who to call. Vic Navarro, a family friend who had long been their gateway into the paranormal. Tales of strange noises and unexplainable events had always been dismissed as pranks or imagination.
My instances, I've written about it and all this other stuff, but I've kept it to myself well until now.
So as soon as the idea for this project came up, I thought we should contact Vic Navarro. He's a friend of the family that I've known pretty much my whole life, and probably the first person to really introduce me to the world of the paranormal.
But now, standing on the edge of the unknown, they couldn't ignore the possibility any longer. Something was out there in the woods, and the question hung heavy in the air.
Sooner or later, everybody's going to have to face the facts that we're not alone. Bigfoot is real, so what do we do about it? Where are we?
If Bigfoot truly exists, where would they even begin to find it? Justin McCullough, a lifelong resident of Northeast Georgia and a well-known local Bigfoot witness.
I just felt like it was important for people to hear about it. And maybe that will get people to, tell their stories too. We just put the boys down for bed, and my dog usually goes outside with them before I, put them up for the night. So we went out there. He just stops.
Has spent years exploring the region's dense forests and collecting first-hand accounts of strange sightings.
And he immediately just starts visibly getting, shaking, and runs back inside and hides. He's never done that before. But I was listening, and I heard all these weird ape-like noises, and I could see, looks like something standing in the woods. That's when I knew something was actually close. And then all of a sudden, I started getting really scared, a really weird feeling, and it felt like something pressed into my thoughts.
He recalled one night that would forever change his perspective. Night had fallen, and the house lay quiet, save for the soft breathing of sleeping children. But the familiar routine of stepping outside with the dog turned instantly wrong. The animal froze, quivering, then bolted inside, terrified. From the edge of the darkened woods came low, guttural calls echoing like something not quite human. Shadows shifted, and a massive, indistinct shape loomed between the trees. In that instant, a bone-deep fear settled over him. Whatever was out there was real, and it was closer than anyone dared imagine.
And he's like, here, let me ask you some questions. And then when he asked me if I felt anything pressed into my mind.
The episode set out to uncover the secrets hidden within the old cemeteries of LJ, Blue Ridge, and Blairsville, places where history and legend collide. Moving carefully through the twilight, the team respected every resting place. But an eerie stillness always seemed to follow them. No rustle of leaves, no chirp of insects, just a heavy, unnatural quiet that made the hairs on their necks rise.
Area group out, we make our choice where we're going to go, and we always try to go to the most active area at the time. Learning all these different things about them, a lot of folks think, okay, we can all just go right here in the forest and go to beating on trees and everything, we'll get a response. That's true. You probably can't. You may not get the response you want. To start off with, we're going to ease up here in this little wood line right here, and with the hopes and chance to hear something or get a chance to get a glimpse of something.
Later, as they examined the photos, one frame stopped them cold. A towering, shadowy figure, eyes glowing like embers, hunched and alert, watching from the edge of the graveyard. The moment confirmed what they had long suspected. Some presences in these woods are far from ordinary. The encounter happened in the late summer of 2018, deep in the rugged mountains of North Georgia. While inspecting a property along the edge of vast stretches of untouched forest, the witness noticed movement in a clearing ahead. At first, it seemed like a person, or perhaps an animal, but then the figure halted, motionless and tense. A massive, shadowy shape stared directly, its elongated face, sharp ears, and enormous hand gripping a nearby tree unmistakable.
That to be said, we haven't found our own physical evidence of Bigfoot, but we met a ton of people who were willing to share their personal accounts, their encounters, people who are local here to LJ, Georgia, who have seen, they've heard, they've even felt something really unexplainable in the woods here.
But honestly, the experience of searching or just stepping out into the unknown with friends and listening to the sounds of the forest and wondering what might be out there, that's kind of what makes it worth it to me.
We're not giving up. I think there's still plenty to explore. And I think for a place with such rich history as LJ, Georgia, there's so much more to uncover.
The forest fell deathly silent, and in that heavy, unnatural quiet, it became terrifyingly clear that something otherworldly was watching. The forest hung in an eerie, heavy silence as night settled over the North Georgia mountains. Amid the shadows, a massive figure moved behind a low-hanging branch, revealing its towering size. Faint, deliberate noises stirred in the underbrush.
To start off with, we're going to ease up here in this little wood line right here, and with the hopes and chance to hear something or get a chance to get a glimpse of something. These critters are like excellent mimickers. They can mimic all kind of wildlife sounds. And up here, it just seems to be that one of the sounds they love to mimic is an owl. And when you're out there and you get to hear that, where one's trying to mimic an owl is not that loud. It's not that chesty, boisterous, loudness of a regular owl.
Urging a hasty retreat to the truck. Only once inside did the true weight of the encounter sink in, a chilling reminder that the woods conceal forces beyond imagination. Salish Sasquatch takes viewers straight into the heart of the unknown, where every shadow and sound hints at something just out of sight. This weekend, the team heads to a secluded stretch near the Columbia River Gorge in Skamania County, a place long whispered among researchers as one of the most active territories for Bigfoot activity. With cameras rolling and nerves on edge, every step could reveal evidence. Every rustle could signal a presence, and every moment carries the possibility of an encounter that changes everything.
Welcome to Salish Sasquatch, where we share evidence as well as encounters. This weekend, we are going to be heading to an area near the Columbia River Gorge, and this area happens to be in Skamania County. If you know anything about Skamania County, it is one of the squatchiest places on earth. Skamania is one of the few counties that actually has a law against harassing a Sasquatch.
Late in the afternoon, Jimmy Tongate lingered near his rig, eyes drifting across the clearing between his spots. The forest seemed unnervingly still, every rustle and shadow amplified in the quiet. Then, just beyond the trail and a pair of distant trees, something emerged. A dark figure, moving with impossible smoothness, slipping from the edge of the woods and crossing the open ground. His first thought was Steve, his fellow. He was dressed in black, and they'd just been mapping out the audio recorder spots. But as the figure glided further across the clearing, his blood ran cold. There was no way Steve could have moved that fast.
About 4:30, I was standing right over here in front of my rig, kind of in between mine and Steve's, and I looked out here, so you see the horseshoe there, then the two trees, straight out that way, about 100 yards, I saw a jet black figure move from right to left. It like stepped out from behind a tree and walked across, and I thought it was Steve because he's wearing all black, and we'd just talked about where we were going to put audio recorders. And so I look and I see it walk across there, and I'm like, how the did he get over there so quickly?
What Jimmy saw stood a good 1.5 feet taller than any human nearby. Unlike the massive, hulking figure he had glimpsed on a previous outing, this one was lean and slender, yet its jet black form carried an eerie, almost unnatural presence. Every movement was deliberate. Every shadow it cast amplified the sense that something was watching, something far beyond the ordinary.
And Sarah, What I saw was about 1.5 feet taller than Steve. Steve's 6'2". Steve is 6'2". And it wasn't as bulky as the one I saw in North Bend. It was more like lean, but it was jet black.
Marcus, a seasoned tracker with years of experience in the backwoods, had a sixth sense for the unusual. As they moved along the trail, he heard soft footsteps echoing through the underbrush. The flashlight cut through the darkness toward the spot where the sound came from, the same place they'd heard that earlier crack. Jimmy noted it could have been anywhere along the trail, every rustle keeping them on edge. When they finally zoomed in and slowed the footage, enormous glowing eyes stared back, and if it was what they feared, it was a remarkable piece of evidence.
You could hear something walking?
Yeah, walking. See the angle of my flashlight?
It was walking from the same spot where we heard that crack?
I think so. But this way where I'm pointing my flashlight, that's where it's at.
So it could have been, like Jimmy said, anywhere over here. Or even, we heard something crash over here. So it could have been over there, or it could have been anywhere along this. Very interesting though. And if it is what we think it is, it's a fantastic piece of evidence.
At that distance where you'll see it zoomed in and slowed down, those aren't no little peepers. Those are some big glowing eyes.
When Jimmy looked to where Steve had been, the figure loomed at least 7.5 feet tall, jet black, and impossibly dark. Lean but massive, it moved with quiet, deliberate steps, arms swinging, legs shifting, head tilting, yet there were no details, no features, nothing human, just a silent, watching presence that made the forest feel alive.
Once I saw Steve standing where it was significantly bigger than Steve. So Steve is 6'2". This was probably a good 7.5 feet tall. It was much bulkier, but it wasn't like buff like the one I saw in 2024. The cinnamon color one. This one was jet black. I could see everything from the head down to the legs as it stepped. I could see its arms move, but it was so black there was no detail.
In the backwoods, evidence rarely announces itself. Sometimes it's a distant shape or a fleeting sound. Other times it's unmistakable, like what Jimmy recently encountered. Over countless campouts, the team has collected audio clips and subtle movements, each one logged because even the smallest clue can point to something extraordinary. On the Channel Cabin in the Woods, this is the story of Fred Roll, a member of the Curie Young tribe who once dismissed ancestral warnings of towering forest beings as mere folklore. A quiet retreat to a remote cabin changed that belief forever. What began as peace dissolved into an unnatural silence, broken by movements in the darkness that defied reason. By morning, doubt was gone. Whatever came out of those woods shattered his family's sense of safety and left Fred convinced the old stories were never myths, only warnings.
What if I told you that the stories of monsters from indigenous folklore, passed on among many tribes for millennia, weren't actually folklore at all, but warnings? Warnings against something very real. Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, that's what Fred Roll of the Kuryong tribe thought too, until he experienced something that broke his family, turned him to drink for years, and still makes his hands shake whenever he talks about it.
As he made his way along the trail, his attention was fixed on a dense wall of alders ahead, where a tall figure stood partially obscured. For a fleeting moment, he assumed it was someone from his group, but the proportions were wrong. The silhouette rose far above the surrounding willows, unnaturally tall, positioned nearly 70 yards away, yet impossible to ignore. It began to sway slowly, deliberately, as if aware of being watched. He stood frozen, trying to impose logic on what he was seeing. Then, a sudden, piercing scream tore through the forest, shattering the stillness. Instinct took control, and he ran. Others heard it too, confirming the encounter was no illusion. From that day forward, the stories he once questioned became something undeniable.
So as I'm going along, my attention was drawn to there was a stand of alders that I had to pass through that was part of the trail. And I saw what I thought was my Uncle Leo at first. He was a really tall guy. So I was like, oh, shit, I'm in trouble. I realized, wait a minute, this thing is taller than those willows, much taller than my uncle. This thing it was just a dark silhouette at about 70 yards, started swaying back and forth. And I'm just staring at it. And then it screamed at me. And I was gone. And everyone else heard the scream. So when I came tearing back, I kind of got into trouble for going away from the crowd, but it became real that day.
Fred shares the memory with an intensity that makes it almost cinematic. Every detail sharp and immediate, as if he's watching it unfold again. It's the kind of recollection that seems too precise to be imagined, etched into his mind by pure fear. What makes it even more unsettling is the behavior he describes. Rocks hurled with purpose. In countless Sasquatch reports, such actions aren't random, they're deliberate, a silent but unmistakable message to intruders, a warning that the forest is not to be tested.
The kind that either show a wild imagination, or more likely, it seems to me, a real encounter burned permanently into his mind by sheer fear. And it's worth remembering, by the way, that rock throwing isn't random. It's actually one of the most common behaviors described in Sasquatch encounters.
Picture yourself in Fred's place, alone in the dense wilderness, when a colossal presence suddenly launches rocks with startling precision, each impact echoing with a terrifying, primal scream. The panic is immediate, gripping every sense, leaving reason struggling to catch up. And yet, this violent warning was only the opening act. What unfolded during Fred's 2006 expedition escalated far beyond anything he or his family had anticipated, transforming a routine adventure into an unforgettable encounter that would leave its mark on them forever.
In Fred's shoes for a moment. You're deep in the wild, and something over 10 feet tall is hurling rocks at you while screaming in rage. Terrifying enough, you'd think, right? But here's the thing. Those weren't the last rocks thrown at Fred and his family. What happened next, in his 2006 expedition, took everything to a whole new level.
A shadow filled the clearing, and from where he crouched with weapon in hand, the presence was immediately overwhelming. When his eyes finally adjusted, the creature loomed over, impossibly massive and utterly still. Through the narrow sliver visible between the weapon and the ground, only the bridge of its nose and of its brows could be seen. But that was enough to reveal its staggering scale. Its eyes, wide-set and glossy like dark polished stones, held a sharp, almost human intelligence. Even in the faint light, they glimmered with a haunting, watchful glow that refused to be ignored.
From where I'm standing, from the end of the barrel of that shotgun, it was like maybe 2.5 feet, maybe. It was right there. But when we turned and looked, this thing was looking down at my cousin, and we only saw from the bottom of the nose to the top of the eyebrows of this thing in that 18-inch space. Humongous. The eyes had to have been a foot apart. The eyes were like black translucent marbles. There was life in them because you could see the I guess, the light of life, if you will.
If this were a made-up story, why claim such a precise detail? Yet Fred insists, 14 feet tall. A seasoned hunter and fisherman, his eye for scale is unshakable. Though incredible, the height matches other credible accounts, lending his memory an unsettling authenticity.
Why add such a strange detail that you didn't even personally witness, and one so oddly specific? Then there's the height, 14 feet. People might scoff at that, but Fred's not the kind of guy to wildly overestimate. He's a seasoned hunter and fisherman, someone who's relied on his eyes and judgment to survive dangerous situations for decades. It's obvious when you talk to him that he knows distance, scale, and perspective better than most.
Watching Fred, his unsteady hands, haunted eyes, and raw, trembling voice, it's clear this isn't a story. He faced something real and survived. That's why tales like this matter. If even one is true, it rewrites what we think we know. The sun was climbing high as Mo Sergi led the team back to the abandoned mine, its crumbling entrance hiding stories the forest refused to tell. Beyond the tangled trees, the lake shimmered like a silent witness, and every rustle hinted that they were not alone. Over the next few days, they would camp, explore, and chase whispers through the woods, each step a gamble, each shadow a question. Could the legendary creature they sought finally reveal itself?
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we are back at the abandoned mine. You guys remember we did a Bigfoot video in the wintertime. It was about 10 minutes away from here. Now this whole forest is connected. The lake is connected. It's all connected. Now, who's to say Bigfoot isn't coming to the mine? You know what I mean? So we are going to be spending a few days here and just investigating and hanging out, camping. So hopefully we capture Bigfoot today. That'd be really awesome.
The tunnel yawned ahead, black and silent, swallowing every ounce of light. Faint, unplaceable sounds flickered through the air, scratches, whispers, something moving just beyond vision. With each cautious step, the feeling of being followed grew, a cold presence pressing against the back of his neck. Then, a sudden shift in the shadows made him spin around, yet the darkness seemed to breathe, alive and watching.
I'm gonna go this way to the creepy, dark, scary tunnel, hoping I capture something creepy on camera. The guys kept saying that they were hearing some weird things in here. I don't know what kind of things, but I think I might find out. What the f? I felt like something was just following me and I turned around. Hello?
The tunnel stretched ahead, suffocating in its silence. The others had already disappeared into the shadows, swallowed by the darkness. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, every sound amplified, every movement uncertain. Something enormous moved just out of sight, a presence that didn't belong. It was patient, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. With each step, the weight of the unknown pressed closer, daring him to go further.
What is that? What the actual is that? There's something there, like actually something there.
A sharp, sudden sound tore through the tunnel's stillness, echoing unnervingly off the walls. Shadows seemed to twitch in response, as if the darkness itself had shifted. Every step, every breath felt magnified, and an unshakable sense of being watched pressed in from all sides. The team's cameras captured the faintest flicker of movement, but nothing fully revealed itself. In that suspended moment, it was clear. Something unseen was aware, deliberate, and waiting for them to make the next move.
What the Okay, we all just heard that. Yeah. That was the gravel that I heard inside. What? Dude, we searched through the whole area.
Wait, is there something there?
The truck sat battered, the echo of the impact still lingering in the air. Nothing about it made sense. No animal should have moved with such force, precision, or disregard. A heavy silence settled over the scene, thick with unasked questions. Was it a Sasquatch, a moose, or something far stranger, something deliberate? Every instinct screamed that this was no ordinary encounter, and whatever had struck them had left a warning that couldn't be ignored.
All right, listen, I'm not saying it's Bigfoot, but what if it was Bigfoot? Or what if it was a moose or a bear?
Something. Oh, it was enough to shake the RV.
Yeah, like I felt the sound of the hit. And then we have a big ass freaking hit on his truck right now. But like, I'm trying to understand. How does a moose or something just run into that? That makes no sense to me.
Like, why?
Can it not see that there's a truck here? Like, it's just running? You know what I mean? I'm actually genuinely pissed off right now. Like, his truck just got damaged here.
As they scrolled through the footage, an unfamiliar sound sliced through the silence. Sudden, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. Then, a flash on the screen. 2 glowing eyes, fixed and unblinking, staring from the shadows. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. Nothing moved, yet everything screamed presence. What had been just a vague noise seconds before was now undeniable. A living, watching entity, caught in the lens, but still shrouded in darkness. What was that?
Hey, what's that sound? Hold on, I'm gonna go back. Turn up the audio. What? It was an actual sound. I don't see it.
Bro.
Oh! What is that? Wait. Wait, hold on. Hold on. Oh my god, we just caught something. Look at the eyes! Wait, go back, go back. Come on, where is it? Oh, there it is!
As the team examined what they'd captured, in the fading light, the truck's damage hinted at a force far beyond the ordinary, but it was the shadowed figure on the footage that truly unsettled them. Massive, imposing, and undeniably alive. Whatever it was, it moved with intent, leaving no doubt that the woods had been visited by something extraordinary, something that might just defy explanation. On WPBS Digital Studio, the North Country's wilderness hides secrets that challenge belief. While whispers of a stealthy lioness stir fear, reports of an elusive, massive figure, Bigfoot, continue to surface. Residents are stepping forward undeterred by skeptics, sharing encounters that blur legend and reality. Among them, John Tatro of Messina, once a firm skeptic, faced something in the woods that changed everything. 3 shadowy figures appeared in the distance, moving with intent, leaving cameras and hearts racing as the line between myth and truth faded in the forest shadows.
Now, while the mysterious stories of lioness continue to baffle North Country residents, so do stories of Bigfoot. Sasquatch sightings have been ongoing for centuries. As a matter of fact, here in the North Country, more and more folks are stepping up with these sightings, unafraid of what skeptics may think.
Appears to be 3 subjects. A smaller one further back, probably 20 yards past this one, and this third one that might be squatting and turning towards the camera.
John found himself staring at a figure that seemed ripped from legend. Towering over 8 feet, its shoulders stretched impossibly wide, and its neck, solid muscle beneath thick black hair, radiated raw power. He guessed it weighed well over half a ton. Then it screamed, a deafening, earth-shaking roar that shook the forest floor, rattling bones and sanity alike. Every witness froze, hearts pounding as instincts screamed danger, and the line between myth and reality shattered completely beneath the shadow of the creature.
When I got right broadside of it, I realized how big this thing was. It was at least 8 feet tall, and the shoulders were like that. And this part of the neck muscle was filled in solid, and it was covered with black hair. The size of this thing was probably, if I had to guess, approximately 800 pounds. It's enormous. When these things scream, it's like you're standing in front of a concert speaker. Your insides vibrate, and you're like, what is going on?
Encountering these beings for the first time is a moment that reshapes reality. Beliefs and certainties crumble instantly, replaced by a raw, undeniable sense of the unknown. Field cameras have caught fleeting glimpses, shadows and movements that refuse explanation, reminding anyone who witnesses them that some mysteries walk just beyond perception, silent yet impossible to ignore.
When you see these things for the first time, your life changes in an instant. It's like, it's hard to describe because everything you believed in changes.
In the dead of night one June, Michael Guymond of Messina drove home after a late performance, his son asleep beside him. From the edge of the forest, a massive upright figure appeared, moving in a bizarre, twisting pattern that defied natural motion. Towering over 7 feet, its gray-brown, shaggy form raced with uncanny speed, vanishing across the road in an instant, leaving a lingering sense of something alive, intelligent, and utterly beyond explanation.
A gig, I'm a musician with my son. He was asleep and didn't see it.
He came out of the tree line here in a circular motion. It zigzagged across the road. Within seconds, it was into this field.
And I've seen a lot of deer run out in front of me late at night from coming home. And this was no deer. This was on 2 feet. It was moving in this bizarre circular motion, but it was gray, brown, and shaggy. And it was at least 7 feet tall. But it was moving in this circular motion, and it was extremely fast. It ran out in front of my car, about 50 feet in front of my car. I was going 60.
In Ogdensburg, a small team has devoted years to uncovering the truth behind the towering, mysterious figure that roams the woods. Their approach is subtle, leaving carefully chosen items in hidden spots, not as bait, but as gestures of respect. These offerings, combined with whispers of the creature's indigenous name, act as a quiet communication, a way to show presence without intrusion, a delicate acknowledgement of something that has remained unseen, yet profoundly aware for generations.
When I do the gifting, I always call the Bigfoot by their Indian name to let them know that I've been here. Saska! Saska! I left you a gift. One of the techniques that a lot of Bigfoot researchers use is called gifting, which is where we leave something out for the Bigfoot that they can't get on their own. Either some kind of a food, or some Bigfoot researchers will leave them little baskets or things like that that the Bigfoot like. And it's a way to build trust between yourselves and the Bigfoot in the area. If they see you're leaving them something and not expecting anything for it, it gives them a little trust in you.
Even as some may scoff, the reality of these encounters leaves no room for doubt. Witnessing the impossible, unseen figures moving through shadowed forests, hearing their otherworldly calls, reshapes perception in an instant. Skeptics could spend a week in those woods and still question what is real. Each encounter fuels deeper exploration, driven not by the need to prove, but by an insatiable curiosity to uncover a mystery that stubbornly defies explanation.
And I know some of your audience is snickering right now, but that's okay. I know these things are real, and a lot of other people know they're real. Honest to God, I wish I'd never seen it. I wish I'd never experienced hearing these things and seeing these things.
If you don't believe in Bigfoot, give me a week in the woods and you will.
This sighting has caused me to research more, but I'm not coming up with a list of rebuttals to skeptics. Out of my own sheer curiosity, you know, I've researched the phenomenon.
As night falls over the North Country, shadows shift, distant roars echo, and figures vanish as quickly as they appear, reminding all who venture there that some truths are too vast to fully grasp. Belief and doubt blur, and those who witness these encounters carry a lasting reminder. The unknown is alive, watching, and always just beyond reach. In the end, the woods are never empty. Shadows move with intent, sounds whisper from nowhere, and whatever watches from the darkness leaves a mark you can't forget. Some places don't forgive curiosity, and those who wander too far may realize that being seen is only the beginning.